What's good, Ohio Cannabis Report community? It's your host, Gerald Moore Jr. And today I'm just going to be recasting an event called Ignited that went on about a month or two ago that is featuring Ohio cannabis executives in the legal industry. So these are OCAN members, Ohio Cannabis Coalition members, and some of their partners and members. And so I wanted to share this to the community because a lot of our community is grassroots. A lot of our community is home growers, community advocates, and people that are, not involved in the legal space in terms of ownership of a cannabis cultivation facility, a processor, or a dispensary. But I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs. I know there are a lot of craft growers. I know there are a lot of interested parties that are interested in being more involved in the cannabis space here in Ohio. So I wanted to share this uh, live stream with you because it's important that people understand what's going on in the cannabis space. What's up?
My shoes.
What about your shoes?
Dry them.
You dry them. Give me a second. I'm doing
I
something.
can't find them to
Go
dry.
upstairs and get a towel and dry them. And so it's important that people understand that there's a lot of movement going on behind the scenes that we don't see, that we don't hear. There's a lot of political things, a lot of strings being pulled that the average consumer, the average patient isn't aware of. Obviously, it's hard for people to be involved at the state level, at the city level, and the county level all the time. So I know there was just a lobby day yesterday. I heard that the turnout wasn't too great, but it looked like it was still a great event and had people there obviously having the discussion with cannabis being something that's coming above ground and no longer underground, no longer on the legacy market. It's important that more of us begin to have these conversations in public spaces. And that we have open and honest conversation and dialogue around the cannabis plant, around our communities that have been most impacted by the war on drugs and prohibition over the last 6 decades. And those people who are entrepreneurs, small business owners, or people that want to get into the cannabis business and actually benefit from the profits and the economic development around cannabis in Ohio. So, again, I'm not going to talk too much on this. I'm just going to share the video and let you guys watch it for yourselves. Be sure to make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, you want to be a part of a show, we love having live guests on the show. So please contact us through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, or you can contact via email, ohiocannabisreport@gmail.com. I am working on building out a website and potentially an app. So again, we appreciate all the support. If you want to continue to support independent media and journalism in the Ohio cannabis space, you can send us a Cash App donation to $OCR Media. That really goes a long way. Again, we're trying to do events. We hosted social equity event about a month and a half, 2 months ago. That was a great success, and I'm currently working on our second forum. And we want to do more events in the community. I want to obviously up the ante on our media. So I want to continue to do more streams, more content, podcasts. We do have a podcast as well. So if you would like to be on the podcast, share your story, share your brand, whatever you do, if you have a story to tell, we want to hear it and we want to share it with our community. So make sure you go check out Ohio Cannabis Report on all podcast platforms. We haven't uploaded one in a while, so we will be doing that again. I'm a one-man army right now, so I'm always looking for people to be a part of the team. So again, make sure you guys reach out and support. And so I'm going to switch over my screen and let you guys check it out.
I am excited for our next panel. We have a wonderful group coming up. I hope you will stay for this one. It's like an afternoon of my friends. And so next up, we have a fantastic moderator. She comes from the West Coast, and she is one of the top journalists in the industry. If you haven't met her, I strongly suggest that you do. She's a wonderful person, a fantastic journalist, and a huge contributor to this industry. I am truly honored to welcome Rochelle Gordon to the stage for Built Through Advocacy, protecting Ohio's legal cannabis market.
Just sweetheart. Is Lori killing it up here or what? Can we give a hand to our moderator and our host with the most? She is amazing. Thank you so much for the kind words. All right. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to continue your conversations, please go in the hall. Otherwise, come sit down. We're getting through this amazing day, and thank you so much to Ignite It for having this event. Hopefully, you're all getting some really amazing content and great connections. Really happy to have you here. Again, this is Built Through Advocacy, Protecting Ohio's Legal Market in its Next Chapter. And I'm going to go ahead and bring my panelists on stage. Hello. Please join me. Come on up on stage. We have an amazing group of operators here, so I'm really excited to have them join me. Hi, welcome. Yes, please. Round of applause for our panelists. So we are going on 2 years, right, of adult use here in Ohio. We've already seen a lot of changes in this market. I'm going to go ahead and let our panelists introduce themselves and explain a little bit more about what brings them to the stage and why they're here on this panel.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name's Adam Tamarius. I'm the CEO and founder of Clutch Cannabis. What brings me to the panel is, I'm extremely happy to be here. So I'm happy that, we're at a point in this in the Ohio industry that it's starting to take off, and kind of started day one in the Ohio industry. Same with, I think, all of us on the stage. So just happy that there's an event where we can actually talk more about Ohio and where it's going.
Thanks, Adam. This is Andy Rayburn, and CEO of Buckeye Relief and Amplify Dispensaries. And I know there's a crowd out there. I just can't see you. It's a privilege to be up here with all of you, addressing the subject we're addressing, because all four of us were original members of the industry back in 17, 18, 19 when it started, when sales started. And it's a privilege to be with these guys. Three of us got together in March of 19 and started OCAN as well. And I've been to a number of these sessions today, and it seems like an OCAN commercial. So thanks, everybody, because joining OCAN is a really valuable thing. And we're all officers of that organization. So it's great to be up here. Thank you.
My name is Jared Maloof. I'm the CEO and a co-founder of Standard Wellness and The Forest. We operate here in Ohio and in Missouri and Utah and Maryland as well. And I'm also honored to be on the stage with everybody here. We've kind of been together for a long time now. It's amazing how fast time goes, but it's been a wild ride, and I'm hoping to keep the party going.
My name is Melissa Merce. I'm a day one OG. I'm a managing partner with Ascension Biomedical. My history with these gentlemen has been incredible. Opening one of the first stores in the Cincinnati market at the very beginning, these three gentlemen sat across from me and pitched for me to put their items on the shelf. So I'm very honored to be sitting with them, and we are making waves here in Ohio, and hopefully you guys can learn from us today.
And the best news is you bought stuff from all of us.
All of you. Yes, Andy, I bought it all of you.
Thanks.
Already making deals. We love that. Awesome. So I want to start off talking about SB 56. Now, last year at this show, I can remember sitting here and listening as your state lawmakers were talking about the debate as they were currently working on SB 56. And one legislator actually saying he was getting death threats over some of the items in the bill. Fortunately, he's okay, and everything passed. And I'm just curious, looking at what changes that brought to the market. Adam, if you want to maybe walk us through what's different now under SB 56.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think I'll kind of more focus on operational changes for our companies. Now, in order to get to where I'm going to go, I'm going to talk more about why 56 came about, right? So issue 2 passed, as you guys know, legal cannabis in Ohio. And the legislator at the time, they were thinking, oh man, what's happening? Is the sky going to fall in Ohio, right? So they had to kind of figure out a law that they wanted to pass. Originally, there was talk about a repeal of legal cannabis in Ohio, which we're all happy that never happened. But they kind of put something together that was going to put both medical and adult use law in place that would then kind of direct the program and direct the operators on what they needed to do. So the changes that they've kind of made, took a long time, right? Everybody here knows there was talk about pre-rolls starting in Ohio. It's going to make a big impact, a big splash. Revenue is going to go up. You know, it was very slow rollout of the adult use program, and unfortunately, you know, SB 56 passed and kind of provided clarity and direction for all of us operators. You know, a lot of industry analysts said Ohio is going to explode. You know, we're going to go to $2.5 billion in the first year. Well, that didn't happen. You know, that didn't happen for a couple reasons, and one of which the reasons is very large. That was been a positive impact for the legal cannabis industry is intoxicating hemp. So, part of SB 56 basically banned intoxicating hemp in the state. So moving forward, we don't have to compete with intoxicating hemp. Issue 2 never legalized unregulated marijuana. So, you know, issue 2 that was passed, and SB 56 just kind of bolstered, strengthened direction and clarity in the market. So we're finally at a point where we're not competing with intoxicating hemp, and that's kind of the biggest change for I think in Ohio is not having to compete with intoxicating hemp, like I mentioned. But as far as other things that us as operators have changed, you know, there's a potency cap differential, which it still leaves it up to the DCC to allow to go up to 90, which they're leaving. Some of the other things, like, you know, there's going to be more advertising coming, which I know we're all excited to kind of move forward with. There's a cap of dispensaries at 400 stores. That's another thing that impacts us. You know, there's an 8-store limit on ownership and control in the state. So, you know, ideally, I think it's all net positive for us operators that Senate Bill 56 was passed, and we now finally have kind of direction and clarity on how to operate. And I think, you know, a combination of what's happening in market is going to have Ohio get to where most people think it should be. Thanks.
Any other follow-up thoughts on SB 56 or the changes it's brought, positive or negative?
Yeah, I'll jump in. The numbers are interesting because, first of all, since March 20th, when the ban kicked in, there was an immediate jump in illegal marijuana sales from about 10-15% immediate jump, which indicates that probably 10 to 15% of those stores closed voluntarily. So we jumped from a little over $1 billion pace to more like $1.3 billion pace for this year in our legal market. OCAN had a study done of the so-called intoxicating hemp market, which after several national organizations gathered several hundred samples from smoke shops and stores around Ohio, they had them tested. Over 90% of them tested just as marijuana products. And as you all know, that flower and pre-rolls and stuff primarily comes from Western and West Coast states, and the vapes and gummies and stuff come from primarily from offshore, China being the largest supplier. So when we call it intoxicating hemp, it was actually just a bunch of illegal marijuana being sold. So that's been the effect so far. The big challenge going forward, and it started pretty well. There's been some well-publicized busts and shutdowns of some larger sellers of the illegal stuff. But the real challenge is going to be to shut down the remaining 80 or 90% of these stores, because there's 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 of them around Ohio, and there's simply not enough law enforcement to get around to that many stores for years. So here's a tip for all of you that want to see something happen. If you see the so-called intoxicating hemp being sold in the smoke shop around your dispensary or in your neighborhood with kids riding up on bicycles, report them to your local police, because that's what gets them moving.
Okay. I want to read something from the Ignited LinkedIn that I think is interesting and flows with something that we talked about on our pre-panel call. It says, Ohio is no longer an emerging cannabis market. It is a constrained one. With over 200 dispensaries operating against a 400 store cap, supply has not caught up. This is a market where demand is already scaled, but supply is still catching up. Now, we debated a little bit on our pre-panel call about whether there was an issue with supply and demand. Some people said yes, some people said no. Melissa, I know you had strong feelings about this. What are you seeing in the market?
So to preface this, I wear many hats. So I am a buyer. I see all the menus all across the entire state. And I am seeing shortages in offerings to independents. I'm going to speak as an independent purchaser. Half ounces, we talked about rosin. I have had to lean on and call some of my resources and my MSO connections just to fill my shelves. So there is definitely, we are not all built out. And with the SB 56 coming down, we saw an increase of our customer base come from somewhere. And they're asking the questions that we can't fill. And our bud tenders are taking all that information frontline. So there is definitely some opportunities for all of us to get our build outs done so we can stay caught up. But right now we're seeing a decrease in availability, specifically in half ounces and ounces. But I'll let Jared comment.
I agree that we are seeing a tightening of supply, but I do want to point out just before this this panel, I looked at the price for a 10th on the state website, and at the time recreation launched, it was $22 per 10th, and today it's $17.80. So the long-term trend has been downwards. I do share Melissa's concern that there is a tightening in the marketplace, but I think it will prove to be short-lived.
Any other thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So it takes some time to get expansion of cultivation up and operating. So I guarantee you a lot of folks are doing this. I know for a fact that people are expanding. People are pouring capital into Ohio for expansion. I was fortunate enough to get our facility going and expanded fairly quickly. So I think there could be a lag specifically in some products, like we were talking about rosin. That's kind of a low yielding, not a high margin product, but as more capacity comes online in the state, I think all the products will be fairly plentiful.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to kind of move backwards a little bit for our next question. We were talking about intoxicating hemp. We were talking about bans on unregulated out-of-state cannabis now in Ohio. How are operators combating these competitors? Now, I know, Andy, you had a tip. I can't personally endorse snitching, but I do think that education, I think, could be a good way forward with consumers. I certainly understand too the competition and having to do what you need to do, but curious what else operators can do, Andy, about combating these competitors.
Yeah. So the suggestion to turn in illegal drug sellers to the police is more like a public service than snitching or something. Because, for example, the greatest pizza in Cleveland, Jared, is Geraci's, right?
Angelo's.
Okay, Angelo's.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about that later. We go to Geraci's anyway.
And ciders, the elite.
Okay, fine. There's a smoke shop right across the street from this place, and the guy there knows us, and he knows what I do for a living. He said, I'm so glad you're finally doing something about all these shops like that. When I'm so tired of watching kids ride up on a bicycle and walk out with a bag full of marijuana. So it's the fact that it's illegal in the first place and targeted at kids in the second place it's unacceptable. What can we as operators do about it? I mean, other than helping report them and get all levels of law enforcement to run in and confiscate this stuff and shut people down if necessary. I think we just keep building the market. I totally agree with Melissa. There's a shortage situation in a lot of areas right now, and there's also a bunch of us, including the 3 cultivators on stage here, that are either completed with expansion or in the middle of expansion. and a bunch of us that are not on stage right now doing the same thing. So I think those shortages are going to get lower, which will undoubtedly give more people an alternative to going into the illegal smoke shop, which half the people that go in there think they're going into a dispensary in the first place.
That's right. You know, I've been in a few smoke shops in the last week or so, and many of the people
I
behind
thought you preferred the legal stuff.
many of the people behind the desk look a lot like me, and they
They're not that handsome.
and they have and you know, lo and behold, when you ask for the good stuff, right, they go into the back and out they come with some product that had been purportedly banned under SB 56. And so, like, you know, the word snitch is obviously one that is like volatile, but honestly, everybody in this room did it the right way. We followed the rules, we followed the regulations, and it's important for us to try to protect it and maintain it. And the other thing we can combat is with the messaging, right? Okay, so we recriminalize marijuana in Ohio. Did we really? Did we really recriminalize? Or can you have an open container of alcohol in your vehicle? No, you can't. And so the legislators said, don't have open weed in the car, put it in the trunk. I might not have said put it in the trunk, but I understand where they were getting at. Can you consume alcohol out on a public street? No, you're not supposed to. And so the same goes for marijuana right now. Can you smoke weed in a landlord's place if he or she tells you not to? Well, you can't have a dog at a landlord's house if the landlord doesn't want you to. You can't smoke cigarettes. And so this isn't recriminalization. It's not exactly how I would have written the law, but it's also not undoing the will of the people.
No, and I definitely endorse the education and consumers being safe. And I didn't mean to give you a hard time, Andy. You know, I want to be really clear about that, because I think you also raised a very good point that the general consumer doesn't know. And in fact, a lot of times law enforcement doesn't know either, you know, what's what, because they're constantly trying to play catch up with all of these products, you know. And so I'm going off book a little bit, but I'm curious, you know, what you guys are doing from like a brand perspective on that education. I've written a lot of articles, you know, about how do I know if I'm in an illegal dispensary, because so many of them are so sophisticated, nobody would know. And so I'm curious if you guys are doing anything from like a public messaging perspective from your companies.
I want to jump on that. Yes. That is very passionate to me. There is some things that we do at the dispensary that are part of the old medical program. Patient Education Day pamphlets are at my counters. At every transaction, we offer that to someone because they can take it, and if they go home and they leave it on the counter, the chances of them reading about how to dose and educate themselves makes them feel more comfortable to come back to us than going to the corner store, and then they have an effect that doesn't work well, and they come to us to have us fix it, and we don't even know where to start with them because they don't even know what they got. So patient pamphlets, social media, we do a lot about high key facts when we're just talking about cannabis in general. And I think that carries a lot of weight. I hear that from our guests all the time when we're together, that the education that we provide in the dispensary makes them feel more comfortable about where they're going to purchase, even if it's not me. It could be at any one of these gentlemen's places that are close to me, but they feel good about the decision they made inside the store. So as far as us as legal operators, we still have parts of this medical program that we can pull out, lean on, and educate our staff and our people as well.
Guys, let me jump in because the first thing I have to emphasize is, Rochelle, I am delighted to be up here with you. And I've read a lot of your stuff, and you really do know what you're writing about with our industry. And it's great to have people that in the media that really do the work to understand what really goes on in our business.
Thank you, that means a lot.
My pleasure, because one of the most clever things of all has been the communication campaign that was run by the so-called OCC. Now, we're all members of Ohio Cannabis Coalition, and somehow they picked the same letters, and they call themselves Ohioans for Cannabis Choice. there wasn't a single person involved with that effort that ever had anything to do with cannabis. So people like us, everybody on the stage here, including yourself, have been involved with this market for almost a decade now. And they managed to put this off on the public like they were saving, all the consumer rights that Jared was referring to. And it's all about cannabis rights when it was all about keeping the stores open, selling their illegal, like dangerous products to kids. So to combat that, I'll go to put on the OCAN hat again. We're trying hard to run information campaigns and get to people. It's really hard. Nobody knows that better than you, but we're going to continue doing that. We've got a great Assistant Executive Director, Adrienne Robbins, who may be out there, and a great membership that is really backing it. So that's one path that we're trying to use to communicate. Thank you.
I would love to learn more about that in the green room afterwards, because again, I'm a big fan of making sure that consumers are just informed. So thank you for that, Andy, and all of you guys for what you're doing. And kind of in that vein, we talked a lot in the pre-panel call about unity, right? Unity between the operators, the regulators, the consumers, the legislators, and how that's what is really going to take for this market to thrive, right? Because we're stronger together in that sort of way. So I know I was going to have Jared take the lead, but you may have something that you want to say too about it, Adam.
I'll just say something really quickly. You kind of hit the nail on the head. So when we were the first entrance into the program, we had two regulating bodies, right? We had Board of Pharmacy and Department of Commerce, right? So in the beginning, they were really non-communicative with each other, is kind of what we had found out. So I think a lot of license holders kind of band together and try to get them to communicate with one another. And that kind of started early the associations and kind of changed over time. But that was kind of one big thing in the start of the program was trying to get our regulator to communicate and streamline things. And, fortunately, part of prior to issue two, the DCC was formed, right? The Division of Cannabis Control. So it's one governing body, and that really helped out our industry kind of become more efficient. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
You asked about unity. I think one of the best ways to like I reflect on the unity and the best evidence is if you just go to Reddit, you'll see how happy all the customers are with us. No, I'm joking, obviously, but the consumers, the producers and the regulators, we all have a role. And I used to work in finance, and I always said, I have two bosses, my boss and my auditors. And in cannabis, I have two bosses, my board and our regulators. And sometimes your bosses are in a good mood in the beginning of the day, and sometimes they're not. You got to just, you have to react and do the best that you can and treat all of the consumers and our guests with respect. And I think that's really, if you follow that guiding light, you'll be in good shape.
Can I jump in again?
Please.
I'm talking too much, so I apologize.
No, not at all. Please.
First of all, Jared, my boss lives at home with me. Okay. Second of all, I'm always the old guy in every meeting, and even though I still think like a young guy. So I've been in a lot of businesses, and this is an incredibly unique business because we compete with each other. The three of us compete with each other. We're all three market leaders, and
Don't count me out.
the four of us
Thank
compete
you.
with each other. I didn't mean to do that at all, because I really want you to keep buying from us. And
He's always a salesman.
and we have known each other since the very beginning, Melissa. So it's tremendous. But now where was I going? You got me. All right, you got me.
All right.
I was going to say, we try to beat each other's brains and all day long in the marketplace, and then we can sit down and have a drink together, or have a meeting together, or do this together, or play golf or whatever we do, the stupid things we do. It's a phenomenon that I've never seen before in a business. And I think it's because we're all involved with a maverick type business. We're like trailblazers here in Ohio and in the United States still. And you're part of that, and all of us are part of it. And there's a level of excitement, and it draws a certain mentality, I think.
No, absolutely. And the rapport that you guys have with one another and that you've built, I noticed it on the pre-panel call, I noticed it in the green room. It's really refreshing because at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. And I think that that's what I think everybody in the room needs to remember too. And so I'm curious, kind of as we finish up the panel here, I'd love to rapid fire each of you offering some actionable insights. How can we move forward together to embrace what we have built in Ohio and what's to come, and how can we ensure that in this next chapter that Ohio's market thrives? Adam, we'll start with you.
Okay, geez, word of mouth, right? So it's kind of shocking that, I was in a conversation last week with some friends and they're saying, oh, I didn't realize like cannabis was legal in Ohio now, or we had heard people say the same thing. And I'm like, how could that be? Like, obviously I'm living, breathing this industry every day now. It's my life, really, which I love. Thank you, everybody out there that's been supportive of Clutch and the industry. But, education, telling people about the program, the legal program, getting people in the stores, there's a lot to it. So I think it's pretty much educating people in Ohio that, yes, we are a legitimate business. We're controlled, we're operated, regulated, and that's really it.
And reminding people of the benefits of buying legal, right? Yeah. Andy, how about you?
Sure. I mean, last year the industry at retail did $1 billion, the legal industry, and the illegal industry did probably close to 2 billion. So as that goes away, we'll automatically pick up some significant share of people that used to go into those shops. So we recently had 3 different studies done, a 5-year study of where the market would be in 5 years. And it was funny. Our own internal forecast we'd be somewhere on the other side of $2 billion of sales, so double what's going on now, which to Melissa's point is going to take a lot more product to get us there. One was in the middle, and then another one had us at 3.4 billion in 5 years. So, and these were professional cannabis reporting firms that know how to use the information correctly. So that is such a broad future for what we're going to do that even if it's the low end, we're doubling our market in the next 5 years, and that's going to provide not only all kinds of opportunity for growth for our businesses, but all kinds of opportunity for people that come into our business or are already there, to move up and take on more responsibility and have opportunity. And that's a really exciting thing for me.
Definitely. The door is still open for sure. Jared, what do you think?
Back to the unity question, I think the industry speaking with one voice is really important. And so another plug for OCAN, because they're doing an exceptional job of helping us speak with one voice. And for any of the members out in the audience that haven't, signed up with OCAN, I think it's worth giving that team a call and give them a conversation and help giving them the opportunity to earn your membership.
And you got to be sure to tell them that Jared recommended you, so you can get that 10% discount that Jared's going to cover.
All right, Melissa, final words. What do we think?
Final words. I believe Ohio still has opportunities amongst many things related to cannabis and ancillary, but the opportunity for everybody to continue speaking honestly, working together, and being a part of the team, that's what we all signed up for, and not to deviate from that plan, because consistency, education, and having these conversations with your bud tenders will help you continue to thrive in this market.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your insights, panelists. I really appreciate all of you so much. Thank you to Lori, our amazing MC, and thank you to the Ignite It team for having us. I hope to see you all.
All right, we're going to keep the program moving. We are getting towards the end of the day here, and nobody wants to miss the next panel. It's all about local roots, which we know is very important here in Ohio. We have an amazing moderator that I'm very excited to introduce. He is a pillar here in Ohio. He leads the Ohio Cannabis Health and Business Summit, otherwise known as OCHBS, which will be in September in Columbus this year, September 23rd and 24th. This guy is wonderful. He treats everybody like family. In fact, he has his family at his conference, and I'm glad he's part of mine too. So I would love to welcome to the stage the amazing Lenny Berry.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, everyone. As she said, I feel like I'm at home, right? Everybody in this room I pretty much know and have dealt with at the conference, and appreciate Patrick and Elliot for talking me into this, to let me come up here. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel. We'd like to introduce Miss Emily. I'd like to introduce Mandy. Mr. Ed, and Camilo. So Lori pretty much spelled it out for me, so I don't have to talk about myself, which I normally hate to do anyway. Let's go ahead and let the panel talk about who they are and what they do for the industry.
Hello, rock on. I got it the first time. My name is Emily Ramick. I'm the Vice President of Business and Governmental Affairs for Penalties. We are a standalone processor manufacturer located up in Columbus, Ohio.
Hi, my name is Mandy Morton. I am one of the owners for Locals. We are an independent dispensary in Columbus and Cincinnati, and I'm super excited to see everyone here today.
I'm Ed Keating. I'm the chief economist at Emerald Intel, and I'm also one of the co-founders of Cannabis Media. So we've been tracking cannabis licenses across the country for about 11 years now, and helping people understand the business intelligence that you can gather from that data.
Afternoon, everyone. Camilo Basso with Hygia Capital Partners. We do mostly M&A, debt equity raises, and advisory work.
We're getting straight to it. What do you see the biggest challenge right now, or the biggest pressure on your business? Let's start with Emily. Go down. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question and pretty heavily loaded. You know, there's a lot of different just things that we all need to navigate in this industry. I think one of the things that's a little bit challenging, just especially in Ohio, because as Benelli's, we work with a lot of multi-state accounts. And so whenever we start to onboard different accounts that are established in other states, you know, it's kind of like giving them the rundown of Ohio as far as like what it takes to bring your brand here. And so that can sometimes be a challenge because they need to personalize, you know, their packaging to Ohio, you know, and remove a lot of their imagery, verbiage, just different sort of things that they have on their packaging and labeling. So we've been navigating that. I think a challenge right now, and this just kind of goes to just our industry being so new. You know, we really are just kind of like a baby in this right now in Ohio, and eventually things will level out and they will be easier and more standardized. But I think just right now, you know, it's kind of like the eternal pivot. You know, we joke a lot about in our industry where we get, you know, the guidance emails like Thursday, Friday afternoon, and sometimes it's pretty major operational pivots. So I would say that's a challenge. And, you know, as an industry in Ohio, we work really hard, you know, with the DCC, with each other to try to navigate all of this. But I will say that's probably one of the biggest operational challenges for us right now.
Well, before we go to Mandy, so because you guys are like, you know, the mega processors in the market on the independent side, in my opinion. So you have all these brand partners. How are you helping them guide with all of these challenges, and they're coming from out of state and don't understand what's happening in the market?
Yeah, so it's a conversation, you know, and a lot of times it's just explaining, look, you know, Ohio is operating medical, we are adult use, but we are very, you know, new, and we are operating under a lot of the medical guidance. And so there is a lot of things that, you know, with the CR certifications and just the packaging and labeling, and it really is up to the DCC and up to your agents to give a, you know, have a temperature check to see whether something's going to get approved or not. So it really is, I mean, it's kind of like back to the basics. It's just having a full-blown dialogue. And, you know, what I've done personally with penalties is we kind of have like this onboarding package. And with the recent guidance, it's, hey, you know, we need licensing agreements, we need your CRs, we need your labels, all your different SKUs, your ingredients, and stuff like that. So it really is just a conversation to try to make it as seamless as possible.
Thank you. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, and from the retail side, I think it's more obviously combating the new competition in town. Like obviously Columbus and Cincinnati is a huge market, and we see new stores opening up every week. So it's, you know, are your discounts still working for you? Now we're at a point where we might be fighting for customers, and being independent, you know, we don't have the budget to do a lot of the marketing stuff that other people do, or take the chances on the marketing stuff that other people might get fines for. We're just not willing to take the risk on that. So it's like, how do you do this in a space most compliant as possible, but do it also in a way that is kind, and we're all here together and trying to sell the same fucking weed. So let's all do it in a way where we are, you know, at least getting along with each other the next day. So that's our biggest thing, is just like trying to develop these relationships inside and outside the industry, because it's not just us anymore. But I do think that there are a lot of things that we could do that could get us, you know, back to those medical numbers that we had. I think that it's kind of disappointing that our store did, you know, not, you know, we're getting back to that, but like we shouldn't have had to fight for that in between to be at those medical numbers in a rec space. It should have been a little bit easier. But, you know, we have to play by the rules. So we do that.
Can you elaborate on the medical numbers?
I mean, there was a big push when we went rec, like our stores did much better. It was a flip. And then there was just like a cool, and then, you know, some legislation came out, kind of made it nervous for people. They didn't really know where they were shopping. So we're heading back to trying to educate people. You know, this is a dispensary. We got the green symbol on the door. Make sure that you're coming to the right place. And I see other dispensaries doing it. Love it. Keep doing it, because that's really the way that we're going to get to customers that are scared to go to a dispensary, might not know where they're going to the right spot. They might think they're still going to a smoke shop. So just giving that information to them. And then when they come in, making sure that, because we have a lot of people that come in and say, this is my first time in a dispensary, not just in Ohio, ever. And it's like, oh my gosh, thank you for picking us. We love you. And just making sure that they know that it's a space that is, it's going to be, you know, we're going to listen to you. If it's something where you're trying to, you know, work on an ailment or something, we're going to listen to you. We're not just going to sell you some stuff and have you walk out and hope you come back. We want you to come back because of the experience.
Ooh, thank you.
Yeah.
So all those things that you both just described create data challenges and opportunities. When those regulations change, the data often changes that we're able to aggregate. At the same time, you know, we track about 130 regulators. We play a lot of data whack-a-mole, and every day some state changes something, or the report they gave us last month doesn't have something that we've come to rely on or that our customers have. And that gets pretty tricky when we've got banks and financial tech companies using us for license verification. They want to make sure that, you know, if they're going to lend to them or if they're going to give them a bank account, that the data is good. So it's an ongoing problem. It's not necessarily a new one, but it never changes. I mean, there's always something coming in through the data team that, with these new rules and regs, it creates some challenges and then sometimes opportunities, like the last panel talked about federal licensure. Well, that's something we're going to have to start tracking too, and making sure that here's the state license, here's the federal one, and here's how they harmonize.
Miller?
So currently, what we're experiencing on the federal side is creating opportunities, but it's also creating a holding pattern until we get clarity in terms of what the federal government is going to do, the FDA, the DEA, the IRS. There are investors that are calling, but they're calling as a wait and see. That's one of the hurdles that we have. The second hurdle that we have is mitigating client expectations. I think a lot of people look at historical performance and anticipate future performance to be based on that. Having data, to your point, Ed, is critical in terms of mitigating their expectations. And the third thing is states. Ohio in particular, we've requested data from Ohio, from the state, and they just don't reply for months. They don't give us the data that we need. To quantify what she has been saying, that you do better, right? We quantify a lot of what we look at on a state basis, on an individual dispensary basis. So how do you know how a specific dispensary is doing in terms of comparing it to its peers? If you're doing on the adult side, if you're doing $4 million on a gross revenue basis, is that above or below average, right? How could you anticipate these type of questions in terms of valuation? So data, to your point, Ed, is critical, and it's not easy to get from the state of Ohio. There's other states that are actually a lot easier.
So let's stick with the data. When we're talking about the regulations from the state side and now the federal side, right, changing the industry, what are you looking for when it comes to lending or working with, independent operators or people that's trying to borrow from you?
So Ohio is unique in the sense that Ohio still has value in paper licenses. And that is not the case throughout the country. So a 10B license still has a lot of value. Product manufacturing license still has a lot of value. Cultivation license has actually an enormous amount of value. Because it's, some people are upset about the SB 56. In terms of investors' valuations, it actually helps tremendously. You're capped at 400 dispensary licenses. When you start doing comparisons across the country, Ohio is probably most paired to Illinois, right? Like, so we look at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has 13 million people, but it doesn't have recreational. You look at New Jersey, it has 9 million people, but it's oversaturated, right? So Illinois is probably the best comparison to Ohio. They have about almost 13 million people. You guys have a little above 12 million people. You both have both medical and rec. And when you start looking at the surrounding states, Ohio is actually better positioned because 3 of the states don't allow any cannabis, either medical or recreational. Whereas here, you guys share one state in Indiana, right? You have the most saturated state up in Michigan, one of, I should say, which has flooded the northern border with cheap weed. Hopefully that changes with Michigan increasing their tax rate. So you look at the dynamics on the state basis, you look at the dynamics on the federal basis, how this is going to change. Is the state going to get smart and all of a sudden mimic their adult use to medical, so it's all treated as medical? We don't know what state is going to do that. We anticipate that states will probably get smart to do this. Specifically, when we start looking at licenses, each license is valued differently. When we're looking at businesses in general, Ohio has a pretty high retention rate for valuation, right? So Ohio, you're looking at, net sales or 80% of gross sales on a retail basis. This is on average. Then you have to look at where they're located, how many competitors are around that location, where are the closest competitors, who those competitors are, et cetera. So you need to fine tune those details. That being said, we've also looked at gross revenues on the adult side for Ohio, and in 2024, the average dispensary was doing about $4 million on the baseline on adult sales. This year, it's trended up about 28% to about a little over $5 million. So that's where the average is. That's how we look at dispensaries. That's how you would be basing your loans or investment portfolio on these particular assets.
So with all that being said, what I heard was Ohio's the #1 market.
Ohio is a very strong market. There's probably, it's between Missouri and Ohio is probably the two strongest markets currently in the states.
Love it. Yeah, what do you have to add to
Yeah,
that?
it's hard to follow what Camilla said in terms of the specificity of that data, but those Midwestern markets have seemed to focus on capping those licenses. And I think many of us have been in the industry long enough to see what happened in Oklahoma, where they got up to, I think, 12 or 13,000 licenses, and now they're riding that curve back down as they try and right size the market. And it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. So I think this sort of mandated cap allows there to be predictability, which I think from an investor standpoint and hopefully from an owner standpoint gives some comfort and a chance to chart a path forward.
So when you were talking about the patient numbers, Mandy, for the retail side, what does the consumer sentiment look like now with the regulations and laws are changing?
Yeah, we saw a drastic shift, obviously, in med versus rec customers right when it switched, and we haven't gained that back yet. I think that that's huge. That's something that we're talking about as a team, is like, if pricing, which it is, pricing is the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing we hear when people come in. If that is the case, let's work with you to get a med card, because you're going to at least save in tax. And it's not really getting picked up yet. I think we need to show it, maybe because we incentivize our team to get their med cards, keep their med cards. Most of them we hired on were patients. We're all patients. And it's definitely, it's important to keep it and keep that med part of the program going, I think, like just from a personal aspect. And that's something that we're passionate about, and we're going to continue to do that. But yeah, there's a huge decrease. And that's something that, like, back on the data, like we, from a retail side, like we all need data. Everyone does. It doesn't matter what vertical you're in. You're like, you've got to have it done. And we just don't have it. And that's something that we're working on too, is building out our own internal program. And it kind of pulls a little bit from everyone that's out there now, because I think everyone kind of hones in on one area, whether it's like sales or whatever. It's like everyone kind of has a little bit. We're trying to take a little bit from that and make it our own, because this is a space that is wide open for you to, like, you think that should be there, get on it, like put together a company, do something, because there's so many holes. We have so many holes, and we need them filled.
Yeah, I'm building on Mandy's point. Once the announcement came out last week, I looked at the data that we had on patient counts, because we've tracked it in every state that it's available over time, so that you can look at one state or all states. And just quick back of the envelope, of the 30 states that we had good data for over the last trailing 12 months, 20 of those 30 had seen a decline in patient count, and only 10 had seen an increase. And obviously, all eyes are going to be on that as we move forward, as there's certainly now an incentive to move people, I think, into a medical channel. So we're going to keep a close eye on that, as I'm sure everybody in this room will.
I want to touch back on that too, but Emily, you have something to say?
I think it is so incredibly important to empower a medical program. I was out in Colorado during the Wild West days, and I've worked in medical markets, I've worked in adult use markets, and the shame of it is, we want adult use, because if you don't currently qualify with the qualification list in your state, chances are, if you're able to go back to the dispensary and purchase as an adult use customer, chances are you're going to find, oh, this is helping me sleep, or it's helping my anxiety or my nausea. That may not be a qualification on your state's list. And so, just from my time in retail, what we noticed a lot is the adult use customer essentially becomes a medical use customer, because they're finding that it's helping them with other ailments. And so, this kind of ties into the current rescheduling that we had. I just think it's so important for us to be able to empower our medical programs and, be loud about plant medicine and how important it is. And so I just think, especially with the rescheduling, it's so important for us to be able to have that research, the double-blinded placebo studies, and everything that we need, for the medical community to start really just embracing our industry as well. So I do think it's incredibly important. And it was kind of sad, because I worked, in dispensary when we were medical. And we saw a big lift on the retail side. I mean, some of my favorite times in retail was seeing those true medical patients come into the dispensary, they're end of life, they have cancer, they're coming in and saying, hey, I don't want to be on this medicine anymore. I don't want to keep taking Dilaudid. I don't want to keep taking these opiates. Like, they're giving me MedHead. I just want to be present with my family. I want to be able to drive my car and, walk my dog and be present with my family during this time. And they would come into the dispensary and we would recommend, the products that we had. And, a week, 2 weeks later, a month later, they come in, full of color, they're happy. So it's like on the retail side, I mean, you just truly see the benefit of, just our plant and plant medicine in general. So I'm a huge proponent in empowering our medical patients.
Are consumers looking more for deals or quality? Like, um, on the dispensary side, and also when you're thinking about that from what you're making for the dispensaries to sell, like, where's the shift? Are there any shifts? Even with the data head, like when these markets change, what SKUs start to elevate over other ones?
Yeah, I'm going to defer that one to my colleagues from Headset and Hoodie here because they really track that data. But I think looking forward, as we've just talked about with the move toward medical, I think it's going to have a lot of impacts from a tax standpoint and SKU standpoint and what you inventory or don't inventory.
I think from a product standpoint too, obviously we're going to see some changes. You guys probably getting ready for that too from a dosage side. From the rec aspect, you're going to have those caps. So I think that it's also important if people want to have access to the majority of the products outside of infused pre-rolls, like moving to a medical, position is really going to get you the whole gambit of our store. Again, outside those infused pre-rolls, sorry. But I think that people are definitely, once we do see these changes, if they do go into, if they do switch us over to where high dose is going to be only medical, that is definitely something we're going to see. Rec customers, they're not going to be super stoked about that because it doesn't, at this point, it doesn't matter. They want potency, they want, cheapest. And that's something that we're working on too is, are all of the brands that we're bringing in really the best for our customers? And before it might have just been great for the medical customers. But I can't sit on a ton of inventory waiting for medical customers to come in. So we're going to definitely see a shift in what we're carrying for sure.
So from an investor standpoint, Camilo, when we're talking about 280E, as Ed mentioned, how does that entice you as an investor, knowing that these companies can now possibly claim these deductions, which therefore gives them more operating capital to work with?
So it's interesting you bring that up because you look at a lot of the large MSOs, they haven't been paying 280E. And there's even smaller players that there's an exception. If you're doing 25 million or less of EBITDA, you don't have to pay 280E. So I think it's great because now it's going to be memorialized and the IRS, you don't have to play the guessing game. So I think that there's going to be more structure and more definitiveness around it. But for us, it really hasn't changed that much, right? I think we have to wait to see, is this going to be only for the medical side, if it's for the adult side, if it's for all cannabis, et cetera, to see how it actually plays out, right? So we're paying a lot of close attention to what the regulations are going to come out, because I think that's where everyone's focused on is the 280E. We're more focused on what is the arbitrage opportunity here? Are you guys going to be able to do interstate commerce? Are you going to be able to sell to DEA licenses? There's a lot of other large issues at stake other than just 280E in terms of an investment and how the industry is going to move forward. It is an important aspect of it, but we don't consider it the most important aspect of it.
So when we're talking about finances, from his side of view, but for you expanding, you competing with, larger companies here, possibly competition coming into the market as well. What is it that you're looking for, and how will you help? How will you navigate trying to stay competitive with those major players coming here.
I think for us, just being a small business in Ohio, we really take pride on being locally owned and locally operated. And, we're able to get out into our community and really humanize the relationship. Our sales team, myself, our leadership team, and we try to be out everywhere, like dispensaries, every event. We try to just support everybody because it really is like we're all in this together. Like we're all navigating the regulations. We're all navigating Ohio. We're all navigating, each other with each other's businesses and, in this growing state. So I just think, it's a really exciting time, but it's also just really important just to empower each other and support each other throughout this experience. And I think for us, just being just a small business, it's just so important for us when you talk about like profitability and sales. I think so much of our just mindset and mentality has just been how do we humanize this experience as much as possible and really just get into our communities and get to know the bud tenders, get to know the different demographics, especially geographically in Ohio. I was just joking with somebody last night where it's like Ohio basically could easily be split up into like almost 4 states. You have like the 3 C's and it's like a different vibe in every C. And then you have like the rural counties and, it's just so interesting. But yeah, it just really, that's just been our goal is just to get out and get to know folks in our communities and talk about plant medicine.
On the competition, I think that's an interesting point to bring up of sort of new competition. I wonder for you guys what it means with the change in how hemp is vended or not vended in the state. Because where I am in Connecticut, they sort of went through a similar thing and said, you can only buy hemp-derived products in a liquor store, certain percentage, or in a dispensary. And I think the shift is here too. So that's kind of a competitive shift. And some have said that was a $2 billion market. Well, if we stuff $2 billion into 400 stores, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think for us, that's a waiting game. And I think we say it a lot here in Ohio, just wait, just wait and see. And that is one that we're waiting and seeing on because it is huge. And, again, we are all in this together. We have a lot of relationships with people on that side, and especially the CBD drink side. That is an area that we have people coming into the store and asking for. And we have to say, we have it, but it's a little bit more potent. Be really careful with it. There's a lid on it, close it, put it back in the fridge, because this is a totally different product. So if there is, a wait and see opportunity for us to put these products on our shelves, I would love to do that. We just are at a point where we're waiting and seeing. So I would love to put that $2 billion back into our side. That would be great. Yes. But I think like from the brand perspective, like you were saying, Lenny, it's definitely, like Emily said, we partner and sell products from people that are out in the community, that are building, that are here on panels, because we know that if, we are obviously, telling our customers that their products are good. We consume their products. We love them. But also when she's out and about, I know that she's going to say, run over to Locals. They got a drive through, like place an order. Like Penalties is there. So that's why we have these relationships. Emily is like seriously the ambassador for us. And like I wouldn't be where I am without her. And I know there's other people that wouldn't be where they are without her either, because we have to share this stuff together. We have to share information and knowledge, or we're all just going to be sitting here going, why aren't we selling our stuff? And I think that's where I see the shift going. And I hope maybe it's just because that's who we surround ourselves with. But it's a great place, like come hang out with us, because it's making a change for me and my team. And I think that we're doing good things here.
Well, as we start to wind down, Camilla, what are you looking for right now?
In terms of what, like assets to invest in, retail? So I'm looking for a lot of stuff.
Well, yeah, the assets to invest here in this market.
One final point on this. One thing that I do want to share with you guys is, we work with a lot of MSOs. We represent MSOs, et cetera. We also represent a lot of smaller players. And one of the things that has always struck me is that in every state that we've looked at assets, the number one grossing dispensary operator, whatever, has never been an MSO. right? So in Massachusetts, the number one operator is not an MSO, not a public MSO, I should say. Maryland, the same thing. Ohio, my understanding, it's a private, I don't want to say who they are, whatever, but they've told me who they were. But it's not Trulieve, it's not Verano, it's not Curaleaf, it's not GTI. They're not the number one. What we've learned through this experience is that you, the local operators, know your areas better than they do. So you have the potential of outperforming them in your local markets. So I just kind of wanted to share that with you because it has been a data point that we look at. In terms of assets, what do we look at? In Ohio specifically, we're looking for 10B assets. We're looking for retail assets. Cultivation tier 1 is very expensive. We've come across some tier 1 cultivations, but they're just very, very pricey. Tier 2 licenses are also pretty expensive. Assets here are hard to come by. So if, you know, we've been doing this for quite some time. There are people who are into cannabis for the long term. There are people that are into it for the short flip. There's people that have gotten tired. And these changes are just going to add more regulations, right? There's going to be more, not less. There's going to be more federal regulations. The FDA is going to get involved, et cetera. And if you guys are thinking that, well, you know, maybe now is time to exit, happy to help you in terms of valuations, happy to look at your assets, happy to talk to investors, potential acquisitions, et cetera, because there is a lot of interest in Ohio. With that being said, though, you know, we're looking at the data and it seems like, yes, the gross sales have increased in Ohio. In 2026, they increased again. The thing that struck out to me is that it increased at a decreasing rate. So in 2025, it increased by about 46%. In 2026, we annualized the 3 months of 2026, it increased by 29%. So yes, it did increase, but it increased at a decreasing rate. The question is, what's going to happen for the rest of the year? We're starting to see, as it's happened in other states, that saturation is starting to accelerate. It's not going to decelerate. It's actually happening quicker in other states. The question is, when is it going to happen in Ohio? So if that is something that you'd like to discuss, something that you'd like to look at in terms of partnering up, you know, doing a JV, another idea would be to literally, you guys do a co-op where 8 of you get together and then you have purchasing power. That would be something of interest that could be, you know, worked at in Ohio. But we're looking for conversations and assets in Ohio, specifically across the board. Maybe not tier 1 because tier 1s are too pricey.
Well, great. Well, thank you. This is our time. You can catch us out in the hallway. You know, have more Q&A out there. But appreciate your time and thank you to this wonderful panel.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you to Local Roots. Let's give it up for them. Angela Pye up to introduce our panel from cultivation to counter. Give it up for Angela Pye up to introduce our panel from cultivation to counter. Give it up for Angela. Well, this day just keeps going and going. I am really excited about our next panel and our next moderator. I was just backstage with them, and they are going to bring this energy. So you are all in for a treat. So I am excited to introduce our next moderator. Like I said, these are all my great friends for the afternoon. Our moderator is Jessica Ferranti. I met her when she was at Cannabis in Tech Today. And since then, she has put together the most amazing company called the Mycelia Group. She is wonderful, she is beautiful, and has the best heart out there. She is also heading up Ignite Her, which is a women-oriented group with scholarships for Ignite It. There's nothing this woman won't do to help other people. So I am so excited to introduce Jessica Ferranti for winning the Ohio Consumer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lori. So sweet. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Really excited today to cover some really important points about how retailers and brands can build consumer trust, loyalty, and education with those that are purchasing their products right now. So we've got a really fantastic panel set up. Let's get everybody out here. Hi, everybody, come on out. Join us. Perfect. Yeah, give him a hand. Perfect. Got Max, Tiana, James, and Ed. Introduce yourselves, everybody.
How's it going? Max Van Sluis with Dialed In Gummies. We were Colorado's first rosin gummy to launch in 2020. Brought Dialed In to, thank you. Brought Dialed into Ohio back in 2024 and have since then launched into Missouri, Massachusetts, and Arizona, and have 3 more markets coming on this year. So building and growing.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
Tiana Arriaga, VP of Product and Marketing with Standard Wellness. We're a smaller MSO. We are in our own backyard here in Ohio, but we are also in Missouri and Utah. And yeah, we are vertical and we are just grinding away. Really excited to see what this year
22
brings.
years, by the way. 22 years in cannabis.
OG.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
It's been a long time.
Yes.
So
Hey guys, James Troja, CEO at Joint Commerce. We're a digital advertising platform helping cannabis retailers, brands, and ancillary businesses drive and measure online sales. We have offices across the US. We're also global. We're launching some new technology this year, so excited to be here and chat with our great panelists.
Thanks, Jason. Ed?
Ed Schmaltz, CEO of Fireland Scientific. We're a 2-state operator. We have 8 stores in West Virginia, vertical, medical only. It's suddenly a lot more interesting than it was last week. And here in Ohio, we have 7 stores, greenhouse grow, and really focused on low cost of production and making the best quality product we can.
Thank you, Ed. And Jessica Frianti, CEO of the Mycelia Group. We do consulting, project management, and plug-in fractional executives to help businesses scale sustainably. All right, everybody ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So there's no secret that an unregulated hemp in particular and the illicit market is a huge challenge for Ohio regulators to deal with, but even more so the brands and the retailers who are in the thick of the market on a day-to-day basis. What are some of the things in terms of market snapshot that we can look at right now as far as consumers and say, what are they itching towards the most right now? Is it price, right? Is it the loyalty programs? What is the current snapshot of the market today? Tiana?
I think, from my perspective, it's really hard to market to customers in the way that we want. Obviously, we all know the regulations that we face here with the DCC. So in a place where it's silent marketing, a lot of times we're just seeing people drive towards price. The economy is a big factor in that as well. And I think with illicit hemp in that space, it was a lot cheaper for people to buy and just easier to get to. So with those
Access,
things,
right?
Yeah, access. I mean, safe access. And I don't think a lot of patients and customers quite understand what safe access actually is. And there's been a lot of confusion with SB 56 and what that means about that limiting them to access. And really, if you shopped at dispensaries, that really didn't change much of your access. It's really just the other places that were like not in compliance spheres.
Right. And what are you seeing from the retail standpoint?
So we're seeing, it's interesting, it varies. We're seeing in some cases as much as 60% new customers at some of our stores. And perhaps there's greater crackdown on the illicit operators there and the hemp shops. Their area is still up, but only 20%, still great. We're happy to see that. But I really think it is access. And just you pull in a convenience store, let me have a little bit of that, let me have this, and I'll grab this. Now they have to go to a different place, get out their ID, go through all that process. That may be daunting to some. And certainly price and potency is the bedrock of everything. That's what drives it. So you had a high potency, low price product that was easily available, kind of hard to compete with that. And we couldn't, right, on a head-to-head basis. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen over the next months and years.
Yeah, and there was a law that was passed in December, right, in relation to banning hemp-derived products. Walk us through that a bit on your end, Ed, because I know on your end you've seen quite a bit of change, as you mentioned, right, since the law took effect in March.
Yeah, March 20th, SB 56 basically banned hemp, and it's likely well, not likely to change at all for the rest of this year. We'll see what happens after, if there's any federal change and the election cycle coming up in November. You are not able to buy hemp of any kind, intoxicating hemp of any kind in the state of Ohio. Beverages, you could go get a 2-pound bag of gummies at the gas station.
And entire market is wiped out.
And you can advertise that and all that kind of stuff. So that's gone. So that's a plus. But getting those customers comfortable with coming to us, making sure we have products that are comparable, tested, vetted, age-gated, and all those kinds of things. That's a transition that is, 420, I think we saw a lot of those customers coming to take advantage. We'll see what the, part of our job here, all of us in the industry, is to make sure our stores are inviting, that we have consistent products that customers want at the price that customers want. And so this is a great opportunity, but also a bit of a challenge because these customers are used to getting cheap product in large quantities, and it's different now.
Max, from a brand perspective, are you seeing consumers be more quality driven or price driven in Ohio right now?
I think it depends on where in the market, right? On where they live and what they're able to spend. I am seeing a huge shift in quality being the focus, and consumers looking for a consistent experience, because that can change depending on, your grow cycles. If you're in cultivation as an operator producing products on the manufacturing side or, processing side, you have to have defined SOPs to make sure you can create that consistent product time and time again.
It's like McDonald's. We always talk about, if you have McDonald's.
Maybe Wendy's. I'm just kidding.
Listen, either way, whether it's a Big Mac,
Yeah.
either way, you can't expect a consumer to go into a retail establishment and have the same product they purchased the last time and it be a totally different product, especially from the end of the effects that they're feeling, the milligrams. Consistency is key. So I think the more we get legal operators right in the state to start to pick up from all that hemp left behind, that'll be sort of one of our action items, right? As brands and operators, is creating that consistency and showing them that consistency can exist outside of that hemp market that they're so used to.
Yeah, agreed. And, both Ed and Tiana touched on education. That's going to be more important now than ever, because we're now trying to educate all these new consumers that are coming up from the hemp side that we're able to buy cheap products in large amounts. Now they have to spend what has been on dispensary shelves for quite some time, which is considerably more expensive than what they were purchasing before. So now it's on us as the operators to make sure that we're getting in front of those new consumers and educating why price point is different, what makes those products different, and the quality.
Absolutely. And actually, that leads me into the next question for James, which is how do you foresee the education level right now of Ohio consumers? Do you see that they're still in the early curve? Are they relatively educated? I know it's a loaded question, but for the audience.
Yeah, I think it's really about the audience targeting that we have, right? And then having branded creatives that educate and are, compliant with the publishers that we run across, but also promote the brand products and the retail stores and ancillary businesses the right way at the state level, right? Ohio is a highly regulated area within the advertising space. So, being able to identify the proper creatives, get them approved by the publishers, and then also be able to market and target a legal customer, right? Or a high intent cannabis shopper within a specific geo or zip code is key for, having a great advertising campaign in the state of Ohio.
Thank you. Tiana, this is a great question for you as well, because we were talking about this backstage. The complexity in how you educate consumers is something that a lot of other states don't necessarily have as a major challenge or roadblock. If you want to educate in other states, of course there's limitations with regulations, but it's not so strict that it limits every step of the way in that process. Ohio, what I was learning from you is that it's a very challenging environment to educate. And that causes a whole other barrier for brands, for retailers, and everyone else coming in. So talk to us a bit about what some of those challenges are in Ohio right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ecosystem of challenges in the sense that the DCC is very hands-on here. So everything needs to be approved. That goes copy, strain names, you name it. Anything that you see that is...
The strain names are really surprising.
Yeah,
so
strain
you can't
names...
do Blue Dream. You can only do Blue D, if anything.
Yeah, there's certain keywords that, are maybe too attractive to children or push overconsumption or things that just go against some of the major guidelines. So as a consumer, if you're, and I think this also really rolls off of hemp, if you're used to buying Blue Dream at a deli style at some head shop, and now you have to go to a dispensary, but now you're like, oh, is it Blue D? Is that what I liked before? That's really
And really, you
hard.
don't know if it's
Yeah,
the same
you
strain.
don't, and that's a jarring experience just from like the basis, the bare basis of understanding cannabis strains. Now, if you don't understand terpenes and things like you want to be really honest with your consumers. And so that is a challenge when you're having to work within the framework, especially then if you take it to a vape form and you really have to change names based on flavors. So there's all those things that are difficult. And I think that when you can't really engage with people on that education level, then you have to be crafty. So SEO is a really good place where you can start blogging and putting things out there that are education based, but it takes forever.
For approvals, for DCC approvals.
Well, approvals, but just even the timeline for people to adopt, because then they're going off, if they're searching something on Google and then you have one of your blogs pop up to educate, it's still not really direct. And so the only point that we still have real control on is educating our staff, especially when you're vertical for your dispensary, so they can talk to customers about those products. But when you can't really go D2C in a lot of places, except for like advertising in your lane, and it's very, very limited, it's difficult to do. And it's going to take a lot longer to scale those things, especially as we were talking about brands, segmentation, top quality versus value brands, and how that really comes to play in every other CPG market.
Sure. And what are you seeing from the level of consumer education in the state right now, just from a retail perspective? Are you seeing that they're still buying purely based on THC percentage, which is obviously an issue in a lot of other, medical and rec markets? Are you seeing them a little more educated? Or what would you say the state of that is today?
Yeah, Ohio's interesting. I mean, I saw some data last summer. Half of the citizens of Ohio didn't know that cannabis was legal in the state. So, that's a bit of, because we can't advertise, right? And so there's no, you sure as hell know in California or, Massachusetts, billboards everywhere. Oh, I guess I can buy cannabis now. You can't do that here. And then I think there's also a lot of people, oh, marijuana, no, I don't touch that. I get hemp at the gas station. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, that is worse. That is the same thing, but worse. So I would say there's an opportunity to improve the education. And, I don't want any of us to come off as like we're complaining. We're in this great industry. There's a great opportunity here. These are challenges that we have to take. The industry has to do some things. For beverages, it's killing me. You get a beverage 50 or 100 milligrams, or now there's 1,000 milligram shot. That's a bad 3-day weekend for me. That is. And meanwhile, the hemp beverages were 2.5, 5 milligram, 10 milligram in a 12-ounce can. So you could continue to operate and have a functional conversation and be social. Come on, industry. That's what we need to be making, is to appeal to those customers. So when they come in the door, they don't see 50 or 100 milligram options. They see 2.5, 5, 10.
Once you lose them, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
Someone takes way too much their first time, you're losing a potential lifetime customer.
So we're working on that, trying to figure out what product set do we need to make sure there's $1 billion market out there that, and shame on us if we lose that, right? We've got to find a way to get our arms around that and make those customers feel welcomed and that they're finding what they need in our stores.
Absolutely. No, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of the markets are obviously facing, like I said, that same challenge of, people shopping, consumers, honestly, right? Mostly shopping based on price and THC percentages. But I think Ohio is unique in that people don't know it's legal in the state yet. Huge portion. So there's also a lot of challenges with the DCC and just overall, for operators to find these different ways to educate, to meet the consumers where they are. We can only stress about the things at least that we can control,
100%.
right? Stress about that,
Yeah.
and then make the steps and pave the way for different brands and retailers to start to be able to access, the consumers in different ways. What are some of those different ways that you can control, the education level? You could change the shift in the mindset of consumers in space away from, percentages and price and things of that nature.
We've actually had some success running like cannabis education campaigns, right? Just brand awareness that cannabis is legal in the state of Ohio.
What does that look like, James?
It'll just be like a branded store creative targeting all the high intent cannabis shoppers. Now, our system is a little different with our technology to where we are targeting a one-to-one device ID, not a cookie-based identifier. Cookie-based identifier could be a composite makeup online of what the internet thinks you are or who you are based on your browsing behavior. Versus we have direct relationships with publishers that pass us those device IDs. So we know if somebody is a cannabis shopper based on our
So it's not an
integrations.
educated guess, is your point.
It's not an educated
targeted.
guess. And so we can run creatives for stores educating cannabis shoppers or high intent shoppers that it is legal and that you can buy in store and online in the state of Ohio.
Where do you think the balance is in terms of responsibility? And this might be a little controversial, but in terms of responsibility of educating the consumer, do you think it's largely the brands and some things that they can really do, the retailers, and how can both groups work together to meet really the same objective? Anybody?
I'll take that one.
one.
So I think it's a two-part, right? Like it's on the brands to make sure that obviously the bud tenders are educated so they can educate the consumers, which is priority number one for us whenever we enter into a new market. You know, we'll set up bud tender educations, lunch and learns, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that the bud tenders have a chance to ask very open-ended questions to make sure they fully understand the product and how to sell it and differentiate it from what else is on shelves. Then the next step is to do the pop-ups, which, you know, some brands look at as a waste of time, which we do not, because that gives you that perfect opportunity to catch a customer before they go in to make that purchase, potentially pivot their decision by offering a product, or in some markets, like we're able to give out non-medicated gummies. Can't do that in Ohio, but that's a fantastic way for Dialed In to be able to show the consumer this unique texture and flavor that it isn't always offered in other edible products. So I believe it's definitely on the operators to help the retailers educate the consumers and the employees to sell the product. I don't believe it falls directly on retail.
That's totally fair. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, the relationship with the customer is at the retailer. So that's sort of the stage. But yeah, any and all resources that you can bring to bear. And, you know, digital's massive. I mean, 2/3 of our orders are coming through digitally now. So how do you have a moment while that customer is shopping there to make sure they have some education? And, you know, the training, the hiring of your staff, the training of your staff, and the ability of all of us as brands and retailers to present a consistent experience so that customers, okay, I know what I'm getting there. That's the beginning of that brand segmentation that's going to occur. And it's going to be slow because you can't advertise, right? I mean, think of any consumer industry out there: cars, shoes, handbags, clothes. There's good, better, and best, right? And often a significant price premium as you go up that scale. And in cannabis stores today, everyone has the same stuff. So the differentiator has to be things like speed, service, education, and sadly, you know, price is kind of right there because there isn't a whole lot to differentiate.
Because you have to really retain them at that point once you've gotten them in. Yeah, imagine like marketing any product where you cannot distinguish yourself from your competitors. I mean, that's an extremely challenging market when you're
The low-cost provider is going to win that every time.
Yeah, 100%, which is important. To his point, you know, SEO and building out, and your point as well, Tiana, building out the SEO and finding different ways where you're within, you know, regulatory compliance, but you're still able to meet them. And to your point as well, pop-ups, I think, are a tremendously important thing because that is one of the few opportunities that brands have to directly speak to meet their buyers where they are and truly educate on site. And I think we're seeing a shift of a lot of people going like in-house and doing pop-ups once in a while. I think that's to the detriment of the industry as a whole.
Totally. And I being vertical, that is one of the greatest opportunities, is that you have people coming through your doors that you can communicate with. And I think that's a luxury to have, being an operator. And when it comes down to education and marketing, you know, it's really hard to make things financially viable across the board. And what are the first budgets that usually get hit? Marketing budgets.
Absolutely.
And these are all things that really attribute to, I think, the success of entire organizations. Like if you don't allocate resources to the education, if you don't allocate resources to marketing, it's really hard to have the effect that you want, especially in a market like this.
We have to be super strategic at that point to find those different ways.
And also with the approval timeline. So if you know Green Wednesday's coming up, or you have all of your core things that are blocked out to your calendar, you have to be months ahead for approvals to hit them. And still, with all the best planning.
There's no guarantee.
No, no guarantee whatsoever.
So you could spend months building something out in order to have the framework, right, from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
Spend months building out the language, right, the materials, and then it's just a waiting game to see if it'll
100%.
actually be approved.
100%.
Now, how complex do you have to go extremely detailed when submitting that to the DCC? Can you pitch an
Yes.
idea or a topic? So the point is that
you
you're
gotta
you're
do
not
everything.
pitching a topic and getting approval and then moving forward, right? It's like you're basically building the entire house just to then figure out, can you have the permitting?
Yeah, all packaging approval numbers need to be included for advertising submissions. Like if it's an event, I mean, from the table tent to the assets to the merch, I mean, everything, the copy there, everything. And so it takes very unique planning and you have to be ahead. And I don't know about anybody in this room, but I don't feel ahead a lot of times. So I try, but yeah, it's a challenge. And, you know, I'm thankful that I have a really industrious team who likes to work and build, because that's what it takes to get through, is you got to grind.
Yeah, you gotta have a different, it takes a different human to be in cannabis. We're all painfully familiar. But yeah, in terms of other like strategies that can be employed. So we talked about, again, meeting the consumer where they are, right? Doing pop-ups, finding different ways to implement digital strategies. Have you seen any other real, you know, strategies being successful in Ohio as far as, again, the education portion of things, being able to maybe guide consumers a little bit, I would say, towards some more like premium products and like diversifying a bit? You know, have you seen anything that's really stood out? Because I've seen in other states, I'll give you an example. I've seen other states where there are certain products that are geared towards like the senior citizen community.
Yep.
And so we've seen brands, phenomenal brands like Farrow's Beverages, who's diving into THC as well. They're going and actually busing people back and forth from senior citizen facilities, educating them, doing workshops, and then converting them into consumers by taking them to the dispensaries. So there are obviously strategies that can be employed, but what are they? You know, how do they work by state? And Ohio specifically, have you seen anything, you know, close to that? Anything super unique that can be used?
We did something, we started in March, a social media campaign around a peach as a metaphor for all things cannabis, right? Because who doesn't like a peach, and that's fine. And so we had these sort of, you know, little mysterious postings, and engagement was up, you know, I mean, a massive amount. And then we launched a whole bunch of peach product, gummies, some peachy strains, some peachy terps in our carts, and blew through the product. People were coming in looking for the product. They coming in for the merch as well. So I do think you can do social media, but you have to be clever about it. You can't just say, hey, we've got good weed, because you're not going to get past the social media hurdle, much less the Ohio hurdle.
You mentioned it's the local dispensaries are the ones winning out in that area, right? Because that's really what it's coming down to. So leveraging social, creating creative campaigns is really one of the biggest things. But yeah, hopefully we'll start to see some more creativity be allowed and employed in the state. What let's talk about one of the other big elements, of course, that is very unique to each market, which is the pricing and retention strategies, right? So I imagine now that with the recent law passing of banning hemp, there's sort of a shift, I'm sure, of a lot of brands and retailers trying to figure out how pricing should really adapt, right? Because when you look at markets where, let's go like smoke shops, for instance, those pricings are going to be what consumers are used to. Now, when you're shifting into a completely legal market, yes, the product is compliant and it's clean and consumers feel maybe excited about, you know, consuming safer, but ultimately they already have this like this blueprint in their mind of what the pricing should look like. I imagine that's a little bit of a difficulty as well in terms of converting and also retaining some of the existing business that you guys have had, right? And could you speak to, well, sorry.
Yeah, and I think we can't ignore the abomination that is Michigan, right? You know, the price differential
I'm
there.
Switzerland, Ed. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about.
Is I think Pablo Zuanik of Zuanik and Associates, good research if you're all looking for cannabis research. He posted retail price per gram in Michigan was $2.16, in Ohio $5.88, and you know there's a dead zone in northwestern Ohio because of Michigan. So, that's a huge challenge, as well as those hemp customers migrating up. And, at the end of the day, respectfully to my team and everyone up here, brands don't matter yet. My definition of that is a customer walk into a store, do you have brand X? No, they turn around and walk out, right? If you don't have a product they're asking for, typically you say, well, I got these. Okay, I'll take one of those.
Sure.
So to me, that's a brand that doesn't quite, we're not there yet.
But just
It's
brand
coming.
It's the loyalty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the brand loyalty hasn't been built yet. And that's something that you really are going to primarily see in mature markets, right? Where now people are familiar, obviously, in a lot of those states, even like California, the marketing infrastructure is very different.
It's bananas, yeah.
I'm sure I know you.
Yeah.
I know you know, Sienna.
I know. I'm a West Coast girl through and through. I'm new to Ohio, so it's been a hell of a learning curve being here. However, I think like to that point, yeah, brands are going to be the thing that succeeds. Cannabis is just like every other industry that we know, but the regulations is what keeps things slower. So as long as the frameworks exist here, marketing is going to be slower, but brands are what win. And you're going to see that across the board. Right now, we're training customers. There is no loyalty. Even if you have loyalty programs, you can structure those to try to get information or incentivize it in the compliant frameworks to have people involved, but it's still a challenge. Truly, brands have such an opportunity here, and that starts with consistent, good quality product.
I was gonna say how, right?
Yeah, like strains, good quality product, good quality strains, and actually trying to do the right thing and put good product to market. I think like when, we're talking about all the different categories, like there's ways to do live resin in a right way, and there's ways to do it wrong, so those operators will over time, and that's where this marathon is not a sprint. We're going to be grinding a long time, and the commitment and the dedication to the customer is really what's going to set people apart. It's going to be a while. So
Yeah, and I think like any other market too, the operators that are able to pivot quickly, right, and be flexible in their products, their pricing strategies, anything, are going to really come out on top because regulations change constantly, right? There's no such thing. I always say there's no such thing as an expert in cannabis,
no.
right? Ultimately, you can know everything there is to know, and then tomorrow something changes.
But store demographics change, medium income in those areas are different. Your segmentation is male, female, or is this a flower shop that people want? It's very different than vape consumers. So understanding the data at that level and who you're serving also greatly helps you understand who you would like to be engaging with and how to structure those things. But there's many tools in that toolbox. It's not one size fits all, and it definitely takes strategy.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think there are two, primary things like to focus on, which is being in front of your audience and being able to talk and educate. And also, you mentioned one really important thing that we didn't touch on, which is leveraging data. There are so many. I say we were talking about this earlier. It's like a doctor handing you a medical report and expecting you to just read it and understand and connect the dots. But there are tools now that exist in cannabis that do that reading for you, that connect your two symptoms and say, this is the result, right? I think the biggest thing now is for all the companies in Ohio to come together, find different ways, of course, to help improve regulation, things like that, but also really leveraging the data. What is the data saying, right? In terms of what's working, what isn't, right? What consumers are leaning towards. So I think it's a very big thing that we hope to see more in the Ohio market.
So in that there, I'll pick it back up in a little bit where I'll show the other videos. But if you want to see the videos yourself, those are on YouTube. And make sure you share them because, again, a lot of people in Ohio are still very not aware of what's going on in the cannabis space, right? You got to think if people are working 40, 60, 80 hours a week, you know what I mean? They're getting bits and pieces from the news. A lot of these cannabis companies aren't marketing and advertising because they don't have, because in the state licensure and the laws right now, you can't market and advertise, right? Because of, just the laws. And that's why they wanted to get rid of the hemp companies because the hemp brands could market and advertise how they wanted to on social media and stuff like that. So again, make sure you guys like, comment, follow, subscribe on all of our platforms. Contact us via our email, ohiocannabisreport@gmail.com. If you have any tips, any stories that you want to share with the community, we're always looking to engage. Again, we are an independent media platform. I don't call myself a journalist because I am married to a journalist, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm just somebody who, again, has followed the cannabis industry here in Ohio since we started. I've been a cannabis consumer since I was about 17 years old, since it was illegal. I'm a former Division I All-American football player, NFL free agent. So again, I've been in the public eye for a long time. I'm a signed model and actor, so I've done commercials, TV ads, and stuff like that. But again, I'm a member of the community at large, you know what I mean? So I don't really subscribe to how these cannabis companies and industry leaders and CEOs and big pocket people come into this space and just take it over, right? They don't really get involved with the legacy market. They don't bring the legacy market in. They literally got rid of they wanted to get rid of home grow. They've gotten rid of the tier 3 craft grow licenses that never got released. And so again, they're just showing that they don't care about the average person or community or patient in the Ohio cannabis space. They only care about profits in their pockets. So again, we'll be back in a little bit. My nephew's calling me. What's up, man? Good job. Give me some. Ooh. But again, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Substack. I just released a Substack article. Follow us on our podcast. Again, if you want to share your story, if you have a story to tell, reach out to us, and we love to share community stories. If you have an event, make sure you share that with us as well. I'm based in Columbus, so anything around the metropolitan area, I'm usually able to come to. I'm looking for more people to join the team too. So if you want to be a media partner with us, if you want to do content, please reach out. I'm always looking for like different reporters to cover different events, because we do get a lot of event invitations, but I'm only one person, so I can only go to one place at a time. And so again, we appreciate all the support. We're up to 405 subscriptions on our YouTube. We're well on our way to 1,000. So again, we're going to try to get to 500 soon, and then we're going to keep stacking away. So again, appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all, if y'all want to support, donate to our Cash App. The link is right there, or the Cash App is right there, $OCR Media. That goes directly to us, and it helps us to support this channel. Again, I do this out the kindness of my heart, just to support the cannabis community at large. And be on the lookout for a new event. We are getting ready to start putting together another cannabis social equity forum here in Columbus. So again, thank you guys for the support. Till next time, peace.